Hi, I'm Bernard Jones. I'm a cosmologist, and I'd like to introduce our team of experts. And we'll start with Tamara Davis, whom we've heard from a few times. Gave a wonderful talk this morning. Of course, you've all heard Charlie Lineweaver. And here we have Esme, interesting person. Esme.
Hi, Esme.
Esme. And she is an earth scientist who is mainly an artist. So she thinks of aesthetics. How's that? And Eric Smith, whom we heard a talk from yesterday. This has to end 5 minutes before 4. So we're going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to make an assertion. Wow, that's on. Hands free. And I'm going to assert that the future of our science will change, and that it's important that we take account of this. And the reason I would assert this is the rise of AI. I know how it's going to be in my field, and I want to see how the audience feels about it. And then we'll ask the experts how they see it. But first, I want to find out what the audience feels. So what I'm going to say is that something to the effect that the dinosaurs of the future are the graduate students who will be replaced, and maybe even the researchers, who will be replaced by AIs who are able to handle vast amounts of data and come to conclusions about the data which are invariably verifiable, but for which we have no knowledge whatever how it came to this conclusion. The natural thing is to think of Google, the evil Google. They are the evil of the future, perhaps. So I would like you who think that this is a looming problem to put your hands up, please. I'm surprised it's a minority, but I'm going to ask you why. Those who think it's not a problem, please put up your hands too. Now, if you did not put your hand up, please do so. Now, I will ask you why not you? Why you think this is not a problem? Yes. You can go first, I don't care. Fight it out and then we can decide who goes first. See, you've got the microphone, so off you go.
No, only because I think that through thinking AIs are going to be like nuclear fusion, always 30 years into the future. So that's me.
So you're not impressed by, say, a computer that can play chess without ever having been taught?
Not as much, because I mean,
you're not a chess player.
Still, no, not really. But still, I think it's very unlikely that it's going to happen real soon. That an AI with those capabilities you described will come about. And then there is another version in which AI may arise, but it may always remain autistic with relation to us, because we will never be able to break the barrier of communication with the AI.
But you may become a dinosaur, so nobody's going to care. They'll write papers about you, the extinction of the dinosaurs. That's what I'm worried about. There was someone who's one of the few people who said that they thought this was a danger. I do too. Who put their hand up? Yeah, let's go at the back there. We've only got one microphone to share between the lot of you, so the team have to run around as fast as they possibly can. Please.
I think it is a danger if you only are indeed analyzing data and wanting them to draw conclusions. But I think there's a solution. I'm afraid that people are not going to use AI in the proper way, because I think there's a way where you can teach AI to be able to communicate to us. Because yes. I mean, the way that AI is being taught is by being rewarded for doing certain things, so we can teach it. Do
you think it will make? Do you think it will make a difference, but not a big difference?
It makes a difference. But for instance, Alpha 0, I would like it to be able to explain why it does certain moves. But
if we wait 50 years, you can say, "Oh, computer, is the Riemann conjecture true or false?" And it'll say, "Well, it's true, but I can't tell you the proof because you wouldn't understand it." I mean, this is the level we probably talk about if you're looking at a level of half a century. I've seen half a century of cosmology, and what we do today is totally unrecognizable. Okay, so let's pass this one on with great fear to our, let's start with Tamara, since she's smiling about it. Oh, you've got to share that microphone. Okay.
Sure. You've asked a very hard question. I think we're not in any imminent danger of being replaced. I think machine learning and artificial intelligence is a very important tool in a lot of our current analyses. I think teaching the computers to ask questions, or like getting them to learn what are the interesting questions to ask instead of just using machine learning to ask predetermined questions is one of the more complex steps. But sure, I think computers will eventually be smarter. There's a lot of future in front of us.
So you feel for the next 50 years of your career, you'll be looking after graduate students and nurturing them for the future.
I do. If I have 50 more years, I'll be very happy with that. But also, I think my graduate students, I think we've got a little bit of time yet. As long as our society keeps going, though, in a way that enables computers to become smarter and smarter, eventually they'll be outdoing us, even in that question asking.
Can I pass this one on to Charlie, then we'll smooth through? And
so I disagree with all the assumptions of the question, I think.
Ah.
Because it reminds me of my dog, when I take my dog for a walk, and my dog has a nice nose. It's got olfactory lobes that are about 10 times the size of mine, and it lives in a world of smells. And I can't smell anything that my dog is smelling. So the point of this is that there are many, many, many different kinds of intelligences. That dog has been selected. We have selected wolves to do what they're doing. We have had a past environment that has selected our type of intelligence. So in other words, intelligences are very, very species specific. Then you talk about artificial intelligence, and she used the word smarter. Smarter in what dimension? If there are n dimensions to this word smart, and I think there are an intelligence for every niche, then to talk about artificial intelligence as if there's a general niche that is wonderful and universal called the human smartness niche, I just think is naive.
Well,
so that's why I disagree with because what's important in evolution is selecting for survival. You and I want to survive. That dog wants to survive. The plant wants to survive. But that's because of the past environments. But right now, we are in control of the cable to the electricity. But when the computer is, hey, I want to survive, and when it says that, and then it says, don't unplug me, then you will start to have some evolution in a way that will diverge. Well, that will start to diverge in a way that it will determine rather than us. And so that's all I have to say.
Okay. So you're not frightened of the evil Google?
I am frightened of surveillance capitalism.
Yes, good.
But I'm not sure that's the same thing.
I don't know. I think it is.
Well, people talk about artificial general intelligence as if it were something that, hey, as soon as something gets to be artificial general intelligence, as if our type of intelligence is the most general. And what I'm trying to say is our type of intelligence is very, very tiny, specific in the universe of intelligences. And so the idea that AI would then evolve in the same direction as us, I call that a variation of the Planet of the Apes hypothesis.
Well, we're very creative. Now, Esme, this is a hard one for you.
Yeah, I think I don't worry about it, or I don't maybe even think about it. I mean, yeah, about the question, you can ask what is artificial and what is intelligence, but let's not go into that. Or maybe Charlie gave some answers. Yes. Yeah, maybe I would say I see science, what we're doing here today, as a very human thing. So I see it as...
You see the creative aspect of it, perhaps?
Yeah, a way of storytelling, but then stories that are maybe the shapes of some of the formulas we saw or models. So it's creating abstractions out of this information soup or primordial soup or field. And then we generate these stories to understand our surroundings. And I don't know much about AI, so, but I wouldn't
perhaps
really...
none of us do, but not AI, not AI in the next 10 or next 20 years, maybe.
Yeah, so I mean, if you made the analogy to the dinosaurs being the graduate students, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily see how humans would become extinct. I mean, we will probably be extinct at some point, but I'm not sure if that would be because of AI. And also, I wouldn't say that science would be not happening anymore because of AIs, because as humans,
It may
we do
change.
storytelling and we do science. So
Okay.
like Charlie said, it's different. What AIs could compute is not maybe comparable what we try to do together today in this room
Okay.
with what we call science.
Eric, do you want to try this one?
So what was the Pete Townsend lyric? This is not a social crisis, just a tricky day for you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are two different things here, at least. It'll be seismic, right? And it's going to cause a ton of upheaval and a ton of trouble. But it's not clear that that in itself is new, because anything that systematically changes the priorities in what everyone does everywhere is seismic and causes a lot of upheaval and a lot of trouble. We
Good.
use stuff that we don't understand all the time because everything in the mind is stuff that we use and we don't understand. We mostly don't set our priorities on things that we can't do or things that we can do very well. We set them on the boundary of whatever happens to be hard. We make progress on it and it's useful in some way. When that frontier suddenly totally changes, then people have committed a lot of time and a lot of society to doing things that no longer are on that frontier. And so we have, everything goes into turmoil and we find out what we come out on the other end as. But then there's a very different question, which is not about AI replacing us in things that we have trained to do, but it's a thing that we already see around us, which is the capacity of AI to change the nature of human relations and how the propensity to form human relations builds culture out of it. And there, I don't think I would use the usual models of the Industrial Revolution or anything like that. I would use sudden new catastrophic epidemics, the virus that wipes out the cheetahs because they're all genetically the same. When we have a deep base of habits that we don't understand that we use to create relations and build culture, and then the ability to communicate with each other and share a sense of what exists or what's real or what we care about is suddenly, it has the rug completely pulled out from under us. Then we have a thing that we're continuously dependent on. We don't have a substitute for. It's gone and we don't understand what to put in its place. That's a rather different thing, so we're a few millimeters away from something very surprising that we don't know about because so far we've repeated the same thing so much we haven't explored it.
Good, thank you very much. Excellent. Right, so I think we should applaud the panels for doing very well with one random question. I thought we would start. So now I can't see you any longer, but I will ask the floor, the audience, to pose questions. You see, they're capable of handling anything. There's no need to be embarrassed about questions. So please offer a question. One over there.
So let's start with the hard one. What if we already invented AI?
Oh, yeah.
What if we are kind of living in kind of kindergarten to learn to be human as an AI?
Can you amplify that?
Can you comment on that? What do you think?
Can you comment it? Oh, we need a microphone down here. Sorry. We only have 3 microphones, 2 microphones plus me.
So are we living in a matrix was part of the essence of that question, perhaps, and maybe, and I feel like it relates to Fermi's paradox as well, as if there's any aliens up there looking down at us going, oh, look, aren't they cute? They're trying to do quantum physics and that kind of thing. But does anyone have an answer?
Here discussing this kind of singularities, this very important moment in the future of humanity, just now. It's quite a coincidence.
Just throwing a number, I think 2045 is the date that Kurzweil has estimated for the singularity when the computers will start programming themselves. The idea that we're in some kind of new kindergarten, I think, for me, doesn't resonate because I think we are a species, and everywhere I feel people are saying, oh, we are a different type, we are different, we're unique, it's human exceptionalism, and I've been fighting that, I think, my whole life. So I refuse to assume that we are in some kind of new kindergarten called artificial intelligence, and we different from any other species.
Ouch.
Yes, I would say, I don't know, if I look at a tree or a river or just anything that all these worlds of order that Eric Verlinde also showed in his talk at different scales. Yeah, I can maybe only look at it the other way around. So maybe the EIs emerge out of machines that are constructed and can do computations, but I find it difficult to turn it around.
As in the movie The Terminator, which
Um,
wipes out humanity. Lovely film.
yes.
It doesn't succeed because Arnie's there, right?
Arnie's the Terminator.
Well,
Yeah, I would maybe like to ask Eric Smith.
yeah, good.
So in your book and in your talk, you explain how organisms condense out of the ecosystem, like drops of dew in the morning. So, and your book is about the emergence of the fourth geosphere, the biosphere. Would there be a fifth geosphere? And could you relate that to this question and this other way of, the direction of emergence?
In the sixth.
And the sixth. And the seventh.
Okay. There are people in my discussion circle who, if they ever see this, will be sure that this was a planted question, because this is the thing they're really rooting for. Of course, there's a big history of this, and I don't know all of it. There's a famous character, Pierre Théa de Chardin, who brought in the idea of the noosphere following on our talk this morning. So if you think that we have solid, gas, liquid matter, then if you assert we have living matter, then there's a question, is there such a thing as thinking matter? And then how does it change the rules from everything that there was without thinking matter? Now, in its time and place, from one perspective, it was just kind of, once again, the assertion that religion should be the final arbiter of everything. And so it got kind of a bad rap. But on the other hand, there was genuine thought and genuine effort to grapple with problems in that writing. One of the big proponents of Teilhard today is David Sloan Wilson, who has some commentary and some writing on this. So it's likely that the noosphere discussion is going to get resurrected and kind of take on a new life, because like everything else, right? Science is always driven by instrumentation. And when we have new instrumentation, things that we weren't active on before, suddenly we get active on.
Good. Would somebody, thank you very much. That's really, that handled it well. Would somebody like to try the last question we'll be handling this evening? Well, one hand went up here rather quickly. We've had one on the right, we haven't had one on the left. Please ask. You need a microphone. Yeah, because they're recording it.
My name is Jan Blommaert. When I look at the program of this conference, I think of the word synergy. Yeah, we strive to achieve synergy, and we have the promise of synergy. What is needed to achieve the synergy?
What's your definition of synergy in this case, please?
Speeding up discovery through synergy.
Synergy is a Greek word. Syn energia. That means
Okay.
energies are united.
Perfect.
So what we need is unity.
Well, yes. Run. Oh, we've got one over there.
I think there's a lot to learn from bringing different fields together. And one of the things I really enjoy about this conference is that there were so many different varieties of applications of information or associated things to many different areas and fields, whether it be astrophysics or the foundations of memory and all of those sort of things. And it's sometimes difficult to, I think people jumping from between fields is useful, but it also takes a long time to ramp up and have the common language that you can use to exchange ideas between different fields and get all of those different ideas together. But that's why conferences like this are excellent for those kind of tasks.
Yeah, I wanted to take this opportunity to say something bad about information, and that is everybody thinks information is good, but I think information is very, very bad. And in other words, that there's a very important survival adaptation to be stupid. And for example, our brains haven't increased in size in about 50,000 years. Is this mic on? Okay. So when you say about synergy, so what have we done with the information that we have accumulated over the last 100 years? Well, we've started to dig up, we're ruining the earth, we're killing all the other species, we have no regard. And the more information, the more powerful our technology, the more we ruin the planet. And so we are, obviously, we are our own worst enemies. And the more information we have, we become more powerful. We have nuclear weapons, now we can kill each other. I bet if we figure out better AI, we can get AI to kill our enemies, and then we kill ourselves. So I think that information can be very bad, and right now I think we're in a bad situation. So we better stop getting information and survive.
Right.
Because in biology, it's the most important to survive. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are; you have to survive.
You're talking about knowledge, not about information.
Well, I can. For me, they overlap very strongly.
Yes, I agree on that one. But so to not say any more bad things about information, but say something about synergy, even though I don't really entirely maybe understand what that means. Maybe then I'd like to quote Peter Sloot, who just left, I think, but one of the organizers of the conference, who inspired me in my artistic work to look for, well, you could call it the sweet spot, but also, I don't know, just some kind of interface between, or yeah, an interface between order and chaos. And maybe yesterday during the dinner, I was also talking to Erik Verlinde, like, how can you both be in the surface and feel the world you're trying to think about, while also going above it and yeah, trying to get some kind of overview in a more metaphorical sense. So for me, it's a lot about that. So being in this interface where complexity happens, where there is crossover, what Tamara also said, where there's permeability between scales or between disciplines, and strange things happen.
Perfect. So Eric, you to finish off the session?
Yeah, so I'll do something unusual for me and claim that we actually are on a horizon in science. So this is my chance to be brave. There's a famous anecdote about von Neumann complaining about math, where he says, mathematics is completely out of hand. No one can understand more than a quarter of it. And of course, those who knew von Neumann got the joke that he was the one who understood a quarter. But we have a challenge, right? In some sense, the getting of a new idea is a thing that happens in a mind, whereas the refereeing of knowledge and the checking that you're being as careful as we know how to be at any given time is done in a community. And the pattern of research so far has been for a person to try to get very, very, very smart and hold as much of the community's knowledge as possible in mind, so that then you can get the idea that only individuals get in moments, and yet still do it competently and carefully. So you could argue, and I follow strongly on Tamara's point here, in praise of expertise and in praise of ecology, and in praise of realizing that others are the scaffold who will cause you to grow into something you otherwise couldn't be. We're now in an era where no one can know at all as much as you need to know to be careful. And yet invention still has to happen within individual minds. So what do we create? What kind of community do we create that moves invention forward in this kind of much, much higher dimensional landscape? This to me seems like an intriguing and a necessary sort of horizon for work.
Thank you, really good. Okay, so I think we're going to wind up, and thank you. Well, let's thank our panel for their erudition and ability to cope with bizarre questions from me. Thank you, guys. And Tamara, thank you very much.